Okay, so we're going to look at the next type of Lewis structure, and this is going to be one that's more complex than the last one. And it's simply because we're going to add more than two atoms bonded together. So we're going to start just like we did the last time, and we're going to look at the electron dot diagrams for the elements. So it would be helpful if you had out your periodic table, because remember we determine valence electrons by the element's location on the periodic table. Okay, so I'm going to place my oxygen card, and we can see that oxygen is in group 16 of the periodic table. And so if I subtract 10, it gives me that this has 6 valence electrons. Okay, so you should have your card down, and you're going to use your squares to place 6 valence electrons. And again, you can use red or blue. I'm going to put my red ones here. So remember that the way this works, we're going to put one dot on each side before we put a pair of dots. So when you're finished, you should have 2 pairs and 2 single dots around oxygen. Okay, then we're going to take our hydrogen card, and we recognize that hydrogen is in group 1 of the periodic table. And so for that group, the group number tells us how many valence electrons. So we're going to have 1 dot surrounding hydrogen. Okay, so again, just a review of terminology. Wherever there's pairs of electrons, like on oxygen here and here, these would be lone pairs or non-bonding electrons. And then whenever there's single dots, those are representing bonding electrons. So we can clearly see that oxygen has 2 bonding electrons and hydrogen has 1. Okay, so I'm going to move my valence electrons over here. And so we can see that here oxygen and hydrogen can bond. I like them more side by side like this. Okay. And so oxygen still has 1 more bonding electron. And so that means we can add another hydrogen here. All right, so this is my Lewis structure for my water molecule. And so again, I can draw it just like it looks with the dots here. Or we can draw it with lines instead. And we want to remember that when we're drawing lines, that this line represents a pair of electrons. Now, the other rule we want to keep in mind as we're drawing Lewis structures is we want to keep in mind the octet rule. So when I'm finished, these elements should all have a noble gas electron configuration. Okay, so we even count the shared pair. So if I look at oxygen, it has 2, 4, 6, 8, which would look like its nearest noble gas, which is neon. And hydrogen, each hydrogen has 2, and it looks like its nearest noble gas, which would be helium. Okay. All right, so this is our first example of having more than 2 atoms bonded to what we call the central atom. So the central atom is what everything else bonds to. So in this case, oxygen is my central atom.